I'm Vic Faust with Swine TV, joined today by the outgoing executive director of the Missouri Pork Association, Don Nikodim. Don, what a 40 years it has been for you, my friend. You've pretty much seen everything, the highs, the lows, and now you come to the end of a 40-year run. When did you finally make that decision? You know what? Maybe it's time for me to go on and do something else.
That's a really great question. I mean, it's one of those things that's kind of a difficult decision. I really enjoy the people I work for. Just you don't find a better group. I really like what I do, but I'm starting to get old, Vic, and I've been 40 years here, and my wife and I decided if we're going to get together and do some of the things that we haven't been doing while we're still healthy enough to do it, maybe now's the time. So we decided we'd just do that, and so going to move forward here. I'm on board until the end of March. A gentleman named Scott Hayes from Monroe City will be taking over as the new exec, and great individual. I've known he and his family for ever since I've been with Missouri Pork. So he's a great fit to come in and do an improved version and do great things.
The pork industry, Don, is such a specialized thing, and it has seen so many changes over the years. I have to ask, who did you look up to in this industry, or maybe still do even to this day?
Well, I mean, there's a ton of people. I mean, like I said before, just one of the neat things about the tenure I've had here is I've watched several of my producers and their kids grow up in the business. An example right now, a guy named Dennis Dorman was a chairman of a board back many years ago. His son has grown up in the business, and he's now chairman of the Missouri Pork Board, Adam Dorman. And other folks in our business, same way. One of the guys I really think about the most is Leroy Ballmer. A lot of people probably don't remember Leroy, but he was just a really solid, steady hand in the industry. And when he was at meetings with producers, I mean, people really looked up to him, as did I. And he passed away a few years ago, and really miss him a lot. But he's one of many people like that that's made this job such a pleasure to do.
Nobody stays around for 40 years unless they're doing something right, especially in the pork industry. So you may not tout yourself in any way. I will. People within the industry do. How would you like to be remembered? Because I'm sure there's somebody out there who would say, you know what? You know who I looked up to? I looked up to Don.
Well, that's a possibility. I mean, I did the job I was hired to do and enjoyed doing it. And I guess I expected that of myself, and other people did too. So I just, it's a tough one, Vic. I mean, it's one of those things that when you really like what you do and you go back, you want to make sure you do it right. So bringing new people in, I mean, we've had a big focus on youth and young people here in the organization, 4-H and FFA, and we have a couple hundred kids in our show pig circuit, young junior member component right now that's just really important, we think. But engaging with industry all across the board. I mean, agriculture is a big but a small family, if you want to look at it that way. And so making those connections and alliances has been extremely important over the years.
You know, that's such a great point, Don. And on saying that, I have to do a follow-up question on that. What is your fondest memory then? Or do you have a couple fond memories from, I know it's a difficult question when you're like, dang, Vic, we're talking 40 years here, but there had to be a couple things that really stand out.
It's tough. And I thought about that because I figured you might ask something like that. It's, other people ask me that too. And it's really come up really difficult to come up with one thing that really was the deal breaker, I guess, or something. But I just think back to all the alliances and the changes we've seen in the organization. When I started in 1983, we had about 90 members on our board of directors. And so when you think about doing business with a board of directors of 90 people, that's a lot of folks. And we managed to work through that, and they made a lot of good, positive decisions to move the industry forward. And one of the big things I see as a change is the people in the business today are unbelievably professional and good at what they do. And when you get them together, they talk about how can we be better. And it's not, feuding and fussing over the minutia. It's things of what can we do to be better at raising pigs and moving the industry forward. With economics today, that's a little tough, but I think a lot of folks don't understand the monumental change that's happened in our industry also happens across all of agriculture. The most pigs we ever inventoried in Missouri occurred in 1944. Over 5 million head of pigs. We inventory around 3 million today, which a lot of folks think that's probably, they don't think about that number being inverted like that, but it's changed a bunch. Iowa's still the largest pork producing state by a huge margin. We rank about 7th nationally in production. and we've seen it change somewhat, go from a lot of farrow to finish operations. We have a lot of farrow wean operations now, and pigs get shipped out of state for finishing, but the quality of the people that do that are still good, and that's what makes the business fun.
Well, it's no secret that it's been a tough year for the pork industry, specifically in Missouri as well. Where do you see it going, or what kind of advice would you have for a Scott Hayes coming in to take your position?
Well, I think we've got to continue to work on things that we've done, and then figure out some new angles. We've seen a lot of our business transition to contract producers, and it's been a really good venture for many of them that's been in that line. And getting those folks to engage like the owner operators have, I've not been as successful at doing that. I think that's one thing Scott and I have talked about, is how do we work to get some of those people engaged in organization, understand that what happens in the industry impacts the people they contract with. And if those people aren't successful making money, those contracts aren't going to be successful long term either. So getting people engaged across the board, I think, is going to be one of the big challenges, and continue to be a priority for not only here in Missouri, but other states as well.
You know, we talk about in other industries, let's just take real estate. You have a couple big boys, so to speak, that are coming in and, taking over a lot of the market across the United States. Is there a comparison there with what you're seeing with the pork industry?
Well, we've had a lot of change. I mean, if you think about the number of pigs we used to have versus what we have today, the number of farms also has changed. But again, keep in mind, it's not unique to the pig business. When people drive down the highway and they see rows of corn and soybeans, they don't think that one farmer's farming thousands of acres. When I was a kid growing up, somebody that farmed 200-300 acres was a large farmer. That's not the case today. If you see hog buildings or other livestock buildings, like, wow, they're big, they got all these buildings. But the crop industry, they've seen the same kind of change we have. I mean, there's probably half of the people in the corn and soybean business than there used to be. They have a lot bigger farms. And again, they're very professional about how they do it. So agriculture is not unique from any other business in the industry. Consolidation occurs, and figuring out how you can be part of that, and understanding that for younger people, you maybe don't have to be the owner operator to have a huge involvement in agriculture or the pork industry to have a really viable future. So looking at things differently is important.
Don, where does technology play in all of this? Because, I mean, you saw a lot of technology coming in 1983 to where we are in 2023, when there's so much talk about AI in so many different areas of our lives.
Well, there's an old saying that somebody said, we ain't seen nothing yet. I think whoever coined that was exactly right. I mean, the technology is changing. It's changing more rapidly. And so I'm pretty excited. I think the young people today getting in the business are going to see and do things that we just haven't even imagined yet. So I think it's going to be a plus. It always has been. I taught my grandfather, he grew up the hard way. He was in World War I and came back, and they farmed with horses and steam engines. And he wound up, by the time he died, he saw a man land on the moon, and he farmed with tractors, combines that had cabs and air conditioning. So in his lifespan, that was a huge transition, but that was over about 95 years. Today, it's happening quicker. And I think those that are willing to engage and adapt technology be winners.
You talk about some of the things that you'd like to see happen. What are you hearing from individual farmers and people throughout the state of Missouri as you take off and Scott comes in? Maybe messages of, hey, this is where we are. This is what we need. This is where we need to go, Don.
Yeah. Well, right now, it's amazing that the attitudes are as good as they are for as much red ink is flowing out there in the pig business. I mean, we've had over a year of very little profitability. It's only been a couple months where we made money this past year. We look into the next year, and we're seeing much of the same with high input costs. And input costs has been the killer. Market hog prices have not been as good as we like, but had we normal input costs, it wouldn't have been near as bad a year. They're looking at similar cost and sale prices for next year right now. So figuring out how you can position yourself to make the trip is the key right now. And again, these guys are always focused on being better. We saw a scenario where the last pig report had about a 4% reduction in the sow herd. At the same time, we saw about a 4% increase in pigs per sow per year. So we had less sows, which was good, but we had more pigs, which about evened things out. The pig report comes out December 22nd. So it's interesting to see what that brings with it. But some experts are saying we may see the lowest salary number since about 2014. So if that's the case, that could bode well for next year.
How much more efficient can people in the pork industry really be? Because, I mean, you look at what the industry has had to do or tried to do, even in sometimes being forced to do, it forces you to be better. And you talk about these meetings that are taking place. How can we be better? Is there that much more that can be done from an efficiency standpoint when so much has been accomplished?
Well, sounds like a tough leap, but yes. I mean, if you look at what we had a couple of our producers went to Denmark this fall, and they visited some farms over there that, and mind you, they calculate their numbers differently. They was on a farm that was claiming to have 44 pigs per sow per year. And we have a lot of operations more close to 30. Mm-hmm. So can you get that good? I mean, even if you figure their numbers the way we do, they're still way better than we are on what they're the top end of the producers are getting done. So yeah, I think there's room to improve technology and efficiencies and all that sort of thing. And just producers are going to continue to work on that.
You talked about how Missouri is doing and looking towards the future. How is it around the country? Are there other states that you've looked to or individuals that you've seen in other states doing things a certain way as we come into the year 2024?
I don't think there's that much difference between states, Vic. I mean, there's not a lot of secrets in our business. I mean, these producers, they talk to each other all over the country. And if there's something that gives you an edge, they're going to try to latch onto it. So technology here in Missouri is the same kind of technology you have in Iowa, and for the most part around the world. So it's available. You just got to reach out and grab hold of it and put it in place. Disease is a big one we got to continue to be concerned with. You know, African swine fever in China. We have it as close as the Dominican Republic and Haiti, which is too close for comfort. If that disease would come here, that's going to create some real problems. The bad news about that one, it doesn't affect people whatsoever, but it affects the pigs. And, you know, if you get that on top of a bad year already, then it gets really tough.
You spoke about younger people being in the business, younger people trying to make decisions and make an impact on the industry. Do you have younger people reaching out to you and asking for some advice, some golden nuggets, so to speak, as they attack this issue and the industry?
Well, maybe not directly, but through a lot of the functions we have, you know, they're engaged in those. And again, they show up to learn how to do things better. And some of the younger people are entering different phases as opposed to maybe an owner-operator. They may be working for facilities that, and again, there's lots of really good jobs available to people that want to work in the pig business. I mean, these production systems have a variety of employment opportunities. And if you're interested in ag and raising pigs, then, you know, we encourage people to continue to look at that because there's some great opportunities there.
What about lessons to be learned? So many times in life, we may do something like, oh, we should have made a right turn instead of a left turn there. But we're going to learn. We're going to get better, and we'll remember that the next time. Are there lessons to be learned from maybe where the industry went right and should have went left, or that would help as you move forward?
Well, that's a good question. The one doesn't really surface right now. I mean, other than, I guess one thing you might think about is listening to consumers tell us what they want versus what they actually want. And we've been through that. I mean, I think, in my opinion, we've seen a drive towards getting our pigs too lean, possibly. And if you think about it, some of the highest priced or the most best-selling cuts are like bacon and ribs and pork butt, shoulders, and they tend to have more fat in those. And we made the rest of the pigs pretty lean, which deters from the eating quality. And helping people understand that cooking pork correctly has more to do with it than anything. I mean, even if we've got pork loins fairly lean, if you don't overcook them, they're still good to eat. Mm-hmm. And 145 degrees is what USDA says, and that's probably as high as it needs to be. And once you get it to that, get it off the fire and enjoy it when it's tender and juicy. So that's one of the things I think I'd come back and say that one of the things we listen to consumers say, we got to have lean. And but they haven't necessarily went and bought lean, so we got to get stuff that tastes good, and I don't know, they got to have a good eating experience. And if they do that, they'll be back and buy more.
Don, it makes sense to me. That's for sure. Hey, before we let you go, and we appreciate this time, What are your plans? What are you going to do now that maybe you weren't able to do before, man? Come on, you have to have something. There's some answer, right?
A variety of things. I mean, a lot of folks know me. I collect old farm tractors, and so I've got more projects than I have time or money left. Yes, and wife and I are going to travel some, and I think we kind of got to the point where we're still young enough and healthy enough. We want to do some things, and there's usually something on my radar screen here that, well, I can't go because I got to be back for that. I've never been good at saying no to doing stuff here, and so if I don't have that interfering, we're going to be able to go do some things that a little bit of travel. And I like tractor shows, car shows. We're going to do a little seeing some things and doing things we just haven't done.
Don Nikodim, the outgoing executive director of the Missouri Pork Association. Thank you for 40 years of service. Also to your university, the University of Missouri as well. You've seen a lot. You've directed a lot. And, of course, now it seems like it sits in pretty good hands. Don, we appreciate your time. Thank you so much for joining us today on Swine TV.